Hello, my name is Željko Mihajlović. If you cannot pronounce that, you can call me Soady. Welcome to my second tutorial. In this tutorial, you'll be learning how to make a texture seamless and use it in Blender by creating a complete material using texture maps that we are also going to be creating in this process. This is the result that we are going to get at the end, so let's get started. These are the steps that I will be walking you through. First step is choose a texture. When choosing a texture, you need to pay attention that it is high resolution, not blurry, has no shadows or very little shadows that can easily be fixed, and most importantly, that it has no obvious perspective distortion. Next, we're going to prepare the texture by doing some color correction, make it seamless, check the pattern, create texture maps, and create a material in Blender. So, let's get into Photoshop. This is the texture that I chose. It is my own texture. I photographed it myself on a cloudy day around noon, which is the perfect time and weather to photograph textures. And first thing that we're gonna do is do some color corrections. So let's duplicate this layer just to save a backup and go to Image Adjustments and select Levels. We're going to bring these sliders just a bit closer to the center to make it more contrasty. Again, go to Image Adjustments, Shadows and Highlights, crank the shadows amount all the way up, and the highlights amount just a bit, around 20%. Next, we're going to do some color balance. This is a very unique step for each picture. You can take as much time as you need. I'm satisfied with this result. Now let's go to Filter, Other, High Pass, and we're going to select a radius of 15. You can see what it does here. So 15, go to Edit, Fade High Pass, and select Luminosity Mode. This is a very important step because it equalizes the image and it reduces variation in lighting and shadows. We're going to go to around 50%. And now that we've got our texture prepared, we are going to need to crop it. But first, let's duplicate this image by going to Image, Duplicate, just to save an original size texture. Okay, let's crop it to a square, which is 1 by 1, and let's just reduce this size just a bit so we can start with longer bricks and end with small bricks so we can have a perfect pattern. That's okay. Now go to Filter, Other, and Offset, and we're going to input a value which is exactly half of our original resolution, but we haven't set our resolution yet. So go to Image, Image Size, and we're going to set this to a power of 2, which is 512, 1024, 2048, 4K, 8K, and so on. We're going to make this 2048. Okay, now we can go to Filter, Other, select Offset, and if we input the value of 1024, our seams will be exactly at the center. So now we need to fix these seams. There are many tools that we can use. We're going to use the Clone Stamp tool, the Patch tool, and the Spot Healing Brush tool. Let's start with the Clone Stamp tool. Let's select the hardness to around 30 and increase the size. And what this does is when you alt-click on any point of the image, it's going to copy that exact part and you can use it as a brush. That looks quite okay. We're going to do this for most of the bricks, but I will show you how other tools work as well. For example, we have Patch tool, and it works so that we can select the surface and just drag it around across our image, and it will copy in content aware mode that exact image. So that looks quite okay. Let's go back to our Clone Stamp tool and fix these lower parts and higher parts around here. That looks good. And also I mentioned spot healing brush tool. It's not very good for large surfaces because it kind of sometimes blurs the image, so it's best used for like tiny dots when you need to fix just little stuff like this here. You see that it can blur the image, so we can use the clone stamp tool. Let's reduce the size and we're going to fix this like so. Okay, that looks good. Let's fix this seam here. We're going to select a brick around there and just be careful not to make drastic changes on the seams of the image, because that's where it will close the pattern. Okay, this is okay, I think. We're going to offset the image again after we're done, so we're going to fix those seams as well. And let me just fix these seams real quick. Okay, that looks good. Let's fix these lower parts. And you can also select the image that we duplicated before and duplicate it back to our original file. And now we can move it around, but you'll notice that it's not the same size, so control click on it, press M, right click, free transform, and just drag it until it fits the resolution that we have, so we can have bricks that are the same size. Now we're going to use this brick here. Let's just duplicate one brick. It would be best if we duplicated some bricks that aren't appearing in our original image. So maybe this one will do. Maybe we need to scale it up just a bit. That looks okay. And now we can go ahead, select our eraser, reduce the hardness, increase the size, and just delete it until it blends in nicely. Maybe we need to scale it up just a bit more. There you go. That already looks good, but let's just decrease the size and increase the hardness so we can delete some of the parts around here. Okay, that looks good. Let's select our clones tool and let's clone this around here, or maybe some lower parts so we don't have obvious repetition. That looks okay. You can spend much more time doing this. I'm going to do it just real quick. It doesn't have to be perfect. And it seems that we have no more seams left, but we do have this horizontal one, so we're going to decrease the size of our brush, increase the hardness to around 50%, and let's just duplicate one of these crevices that we already have from our original image. So go to that layer, alt click somewhere on the seam, and then go back to your original layer, and you will be able to duplicate it. Just hold shift to lock your cursor to horizontal or vertical movement. Let's increase the size just a bit, and We can also duplicate some of these, doesn't really have to be, you won't be able to notice in the end. And that pretty much looks okay. Once again, it's not perfect, but it will do. You can spend more time. Okay, so now we prepared our texture. Let's offset it again, just to see if we have any more seams, and it seems like we do. Right here, this can be easily fixed. Just duplicate any crevice between our bricks here. Oh, it's actually our brick. We forgot to merge these two layers, so duplicate them and merge them, and now we can offset it. And you can see that we have almost no seams, which is great. Now we can check the pattern. Go to Edit, Define Pattern, go to your layer style, Pattern Overlay, select your pattern and scale it down so you can see how it tiles. And it looks pretty good, but we have some obvious color repetition around here, these orange lines. So let's go back and fix that. We're going to go to Image, Replace Color, and we're going to select the brightest orange that we can find. Decrease the fuzziness until only that orange is selected, and let's reduce the saturation until it blends in nicely with the rest of the image. Okay, we can now go to Hue Saturation and increase the saturation of the whole image just a bit. And that's good. This is all done now. We're not going to check the pattern again because it will look good. We obviously don't have any color variation. We do have this white brick. We could also change that. So let's select our original image and take a brick from there, one brick that we don't have at all, maybe this one, copy it, and let's place it around here. We can scale it up just a bit. That looks perfect. We're going to delete the sides, like so, and that looks great. Let's merge these two layers, but first let's duplicate them. I always like to keep a backup, and we're going to name this layer Diff for diffuse. Now we're going to create texture maps. I usually start by creating a specular map first. We're going to name this Spec for specular. Go to Image Adjustments, Black and White, and the only values that are relevant here are red and yellow. So always remember, white is glossy and black is less glossy. So let's make some nice variation here, like so. Go to Image Adjustments, and under Hue Saturation we're going to decrease the lightness just a bit, just so not everything is too glossy. Next up, we're going to create a displacement texture, so duplicate your diffuse texture again. Let's go to Image Adjustments, Black and White, and we're going to make this a bit more contrasty because white goes up and black stays down. Always have that in mind when you're making a displacement texture. White goes up and black stays down. We're going to duplicate this diffuse texture again, and we're going to go to Levels and make it as contrasty as possible. We can also go to Image Adjustments, Replace Color, and replace white color to be completely black. Now we can select Color Range, only black, OK, press M and right click to layer via copy. Let's remove visibility for all these layers so we can see what's going on. Sometimes it will be a bit gray, so you can duplicate that layer and merge them together. And now if we enable our first displacement texture, we're gonna mix these two together, and we can even manually paint the crevices black. I'm going to do it just for a part of an image, so you can see what the effect is later when we use it in Blender as a displacement map. So I'm just going to do half of the image. Real quick, you can again take much more time than I do. Again, I'm holding Shift while dragging to lock my movement. And this is already about okay, just for you to see what the effect is when we use it as a displacement map. So this right side will have the crevices painted manually, and the other side won't. We will delete it right now. You can see the difference. And let's reduce opacity just a bit, just so it is not uniformly black. That's cool. Duplicate all of these layers, merge them together, and let's name this disp for displacement. We are also going to go to Filter, Noise, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And we're going to input a value of 5, which will make it the displacement more less strong, I think. Yeah, this will, for example, white goes up, black stays down, and this is it would look very jagged because this is very sharp. So we can blur it just a bit using Gaussian blur. Value of 5 is quite enough. Next up, we're going to create an ambient occlusion map. Again, duplicate your diffuse texture. Let's remove the visibility for all of these. And let's go to image adjustments, black and white again. We're going to make this less contrasty, and we are going to have only the crevices be a little less bright. This is quite okay. Let's go to Filter and blur this one as well. We're going to input a value of 2. That's quite enough. Let's name it AO for ambient occlusion. And now we have our diffuse, specular, displacement, ambient occlusion map. And the only map that we need to make now is a normal map. We're going to use an online normal map generator, which is free. I will post a link in the description of the video. But first we need to save our maps. Let's save our diffuse map. Go to Save As. We're gonna name it simply Texture. Diff for diffuse. Sometimes it will take a bit longer time if your textures are of very high resolution. And you should always be striving towards high resolution textures. This is called spec. Sorry about that. Wow, what's happening? Okay. Well, you shouldn't always strive for high resolution textures, because sometimes you need it to be very far away and you don't really want to spend too much space with, I don't know, 2 or 4K texture if it's gonna be very far away. Okay, let's finally save our ambient occlusion map. And now we can go to our normal map generator, load our diffuse texture, and it's going to appear in this 3D box. We can see the effect straight away. Okay, let's download this texture. And what's interesting about this size, you see that it's 12 megabytes and it's saved instantly. It's because it is done on your computer using your GPU. Let's name it texture norm for normal, and now we have all textures that we need to create the material in Blender. So let's get to Blender. First step, add a plane, press S5 to scale it up, Tab to go to edit mode, U to unwrap, WS a few times to subdivide it, and we're going to add a subdivision surface modifier and a displacement modifier. Click on New, go to your texture, select your displacement texture, and let's open our displacement texture that we saved. Let's set a strength to 0.1 and set the texture coordinates to UV. Let's increase the subdivision count for our subsurf modifier, and this looks quite okay. We're going to just smooth it out. Now we can create a material. Let's add a new texture, image texture, connect it to diffuse, and let's see how this looks in rendered view. We're going to add a normal map texture, and a vector normal map here. Let's load it up. Connect it to there. I'm going to be using the strength of 2. And now we can add a glossy shader. We're going to mix it up with a mix shader. And now you can see that everything is glossy, and this is where our specular map comes in. We're going to use it as a factor for this mix shader, and we are also going to add a converter color ramp to be able to have more control over the glossiness. So let's invert this, move this just a bit, and let's make this a little darker, just to reduce the glossiness. You can see that if it's completely black, we have no glossiness at all, so we're going to put it around there. And let's select the value of roughness for 0. Let's say 45. This kind of looks too glossy, and it's because we haven't used our normal map in our glossy node. Now you can see we could still tone it down just a bit. That looks good, I think. Okay, next up we're going to add our ambient occlusion shader. So go to shader, add ambient occlusion, mix it up with a mix shader. And we are going to use our ambient occlusion map that we saved previously as a factor for this mix shader. We're also going to be adding a converter color ramp node. Let me just fix this specular map. It just doesn't seem right. Yeah, this looks much better. That's what we should be doing. Yeah, that's better. Okay. And this is our ambient occlusion map. If we invert the colors or flip the color ramp, we can select only the crevices, which is exactly what we want. Let's move this just a bit towards the center. And let's use a dark color for ambient occlusion. It doesn't have to be completely black, but some gray color will be fine. But again, this is a like cement that's holding a brick together, and it's kind of white. It's really up to you what you will do with it. You can even make it red, blue, any color you want actually. Let's just make it a bit gray, and we're going to reduce the darkness of this just a bit so it's not very noticeable. That's fine. So we've loaded all of our textures, and what I like to do is add a velvet shader. So let's do that right now. And for the first one, I usually use my specular map, and I add another velvet shader which I control with a Fresnel node. Finally, we're going to add a refraction shader. Let's crank the value all the way up so we can see what we're doing, increase the roughness a bit, and let's make it orange. We're gonna make it a small value, like 0.025 will be good, just a very subtle effect. And let me see if we have anything else to do or we are done with this. Okay, let's flip this plane, go to front view, and let's add 2 light emitting planes around it. First, let's lock our camera around there. That will be okay. And we're going to increase the size of this, flip it, and let's add a new material, which is an emission material. It's going to be slightly yellow and a strength of 5. We're going to duplicate this to the other side, make a new material, and let's make this one a bit blue so we can simulate the real world lighting. Okay, let's create another one, and this one is gonna go on top and it's gonna be white. Let's also reduce the strength a bit, let's say half of this, 2.5. And now you can see that our texture is almost done, but we haven't tiled it yet. We made it seamless, but we are not using it seamlessly. So let's go to our image texture, displacement texture, and under image mapping we're going to select repeat for X and Y, let's say to 2. And we're also going to do the same for our image textures. I'm pressing Ctrl T to bring texture coordinates and mapping node. You can enable this add-on in user preferences by going to Node Wrangler. Maybe we could increase the strength of these just a bit more. Just to have some variation. Okay, that looks quite okay. Let's increase the strength of our normal map just so you can see what it's doing. If it's set to 0, it's gonna look like this. So I'm using a value of 2. And these black dots that you see are actually, I'm gonna show you right now. Our displacement texture has these obvious black dots, and you can fix this by simply painting it white. We're gonna select a value of, let's say, 75 and just paint over them, and we're going to get rid of those very quickly. I'm not going to do it for every brick, just a couple of bricks, let's say this upper right corner, so you can see what's going to happen. That's quite enough. Let's save this as a PNG file, and let's call it texture disp 0. And we're going to select it in Blender under our texture. Here it is, displacement. Let's refresh until it's saved, and there it is. So now you can see that we have some bricks that don't have those dots at all, which is better. We can do it for all bricks. But for the purposes of this tutorial, we're going to make it quick, and let's just quickly render this. And this is the final result that we got. I hope you're satisfied with the result. I hope you had fun and that you learned something. And I really wish you create tons of amazing textures and materials in Blender. Please feel free to send me your work or tag me in your posts or whatever. I would really like to see what you come up with. Thank you for watching. I will see you in my next tutorial, and have a great day.